So I was kind of thinking, after lunch, it seems like a good time for a movie. I love when he hits himself in the head like that. I've had some projects that made me feel like this. This is the moment in time that many think of as the dawn of man. I prefer to think of it, however, as the beginning of development, because once these early hominids picked up a tool, they didn't stop there. They continued to advance their tools through a development process that we know today as trial and error, and they pass that knowledge along from generation to generation through a combination of observation and eventually storytelling, which today we know as monkey see, monkey do, and tribal knowledge. But after a time, once again, something strange happened. This expert explains.
A quantum leap happened from us being in the caves, and then all of a sudden, we're building pyramids.
Big bang of knowledge or intelligence all of a sudden happened. And the ancient astronaut theory suggests that this is a direct result of extraterrestrials tampering with our DNA. It was made possible by a direct artificial intervention of our genes in the remote past by flesh and blood extraterrestrials who used our planet as some type of an experimental platform.
The only way the ancient astronaut theory can be disproven is when the extraterrestrials show up and say we were never here in the past.
And thus began a period of significant advancements in development practices. No longer was development done only as individuals and shared only through observation and stories, but rather large projects were undertaken using what we now know as waterfall methodologies with large teams. Shortly thereafter, many practices were enhanced through what today would be termed automation due to advancements in mechanization. These advancements led not only to great new machines like the steam engine, to the birth of quality control practices in manufacturing and assembly lines. But another great advancement was necessary before we could make the leap to the digital age.
To the modern eye, this spontaneously reminds of a light bulb, of an electric light bulb.
Now, electricity was not invented by our civilization. It's been around for centuries. It's just been forgotten.
Well, however it was that we managed to harness electricity, we did. And that's what was needed to enable the next advance in technology. Vacuum tubes, the first computer bug, the ENIAC computer. These advancements also drove the advancement of our development and testing methods. From waterfall through iterative and now agile, our development methods have had to evolve, keep up with the pace of technological advances. Please welcome Scott Barber, Chief Technologist of Perf Test Plus, amateur testing historian and software testing futurist, to share his thoughts on the ongoing evolution of testing in Agile development.
So what do you think? So Don tells me that I should actually be a sports announcer, but you know, I'll do documentaries, that's okay. Or not. There you go. Oh, back one. Oh, no, too many. There we go. So, you know, we're going to talk about history and the ongoing evolution of testing in Agile, but as I started working through this thought process, I've realized that this is a journey that I've taken myself, and it's a whole lot more than just looking back 10 or 15 years, which is why I started with the clip that I did, because, yeah, we're doing software now. And someday, we'll be doing something else that we haven't even imagined yet. Because I guarantee you, a couple hundred years ago, a couple hundred, not thousand, not million, a couple hundred years ago, who could imagine the technology we have now? But really, these huge advancements that we're making on a daily basis, I don't know how many of you follow geeky physics stuff and biomechanics and DNA sequencing, and yeah, I'm a geek, whatever. But the stuff we're doing right now is amazing. It's unbelievable. But do you really think it compares to taming fire? There's something there, right? So, but I gotta be honest with you, right? I would absolutely challenge anyone to tell me that I'm not Agile or context-driven, but yet I've never taken a class. I have no certifications, not related to context-driven or Agile. Yes, I'm a signatory. I am principles compliant. You like that? And you know what? It's not principles compliant in software. This is my life. It's all I've ever known. I graduated high school, and so my sophomore year, my dad tells me, any college you can get into. Now remember, I'm American, and we're stupid. We make people pay like a lot of money for educations. My father says to me, any school you can get into, we'll find a way to pay for. And then my junior year, I started applying to schools and getting accepted. And then he said, maybe you should try to find some scholarship money. Which is how I end up taking basically a full ride scholarship from the Army. Yeah. If that's not context driven, I don't know what is. So I will stand up here and I will tell you right now that this stuff that we do, when we're talking about Agile, when we're talking about being context-driven, when we're talking about the heart and the mind of a tester, it's a little bit more than just education. There's some instinct here. And I know I'm preaching to the choir. You guys are the ones here at an Agile testing conference. I don't have to sell this to you. But it really isn't just something that you can pick up a person off the street and say, here, let me put you through a rigorous course for 3 days and give you a multiple choice examination. Because, really? Okay, we're in Germany, right? I've seen what it takes for you guys to get a driver's license. Just imagine, all you had to do is take a 3-day course and get, 42 out of 60 multiple choice questions correct, and you could drive. Just think about that. That's insane. Okay, really? This is interesting. There we go. So, The other thing that really kind of fascinates me as I went through the thought process thinking about Agile and context-driven, and these things got published, and there's a manifesto, and there's principles, and I'm like, wow, all of a sudden out of nowhere, about 10 years ago, all this new stuff, except it didn't look new to me. It didn't look new to me at all. I'm like, okay, somebody wrote some stuff down, whatever. And the first thing that pops into my head, of course, because I'd never had any training as a tester at all, I said, well, this is just R&D. And that's all software is, isn't it? Can you write software that's not research and development? I mean, we make widgets. I bet you this thing went through a whole lot of R&D. And then somebody said good. And then somebody else put the factory through a whole bunch of R&D. And then they poured some powdered plastic and some colored stuff, and magically they pushed a button, and out comes 10 gazillion of these. So I guess the part that's equivalent to that is if we do shrink-wrap software after we're done all our R&D, and we shrink it up, and we send it over to somebody else and say, burn a whole bunch of CDs. But how many times, show of hands, how many times have any of you encountered somebody on your projects or a manager in a training course refer to software development in terms of research and development as opposed to using manufacturing terms? Anybody? Yeah, Pete, because he's heard me rant about it before. I don't know, you might have heard somebody else say it too, but I know he's heard me rant about it. And I'm sure we've got a variety of degrees in the room. I have a degree in civil engineering. Buildings, materials, beams, water through pipes. We had to take a course. Oh, it's the best course for somebody who likes building stuff. We had to come up with this, it's all kind of math, but at the end of the math, we had to go in this lab and make these concrete pillars, about this big, with the mix of sand and rock and emulsifiers and all this crazy stuff that we'd done the calculations for. So we went in one day, we mixed it all up, it's all good. We had to make 3 of them. And then it takes about 48 hours for this to cure, right? Full hard. So we did that on Monday. On Friday, we go back to the lab, and we take our great big concrete blocks, and we stick them in the concrete crusher. Really, I'm the only one grinning. Okay, feel like an idiot, but you know what? It's still cool. And you stick it in the concrete crusher, and you shut the great big, it's this thick. I've seen the glass, you know, you go to a bank, right? You see the bulletproof glass, it's like an inch. This thing had to be 3 times that thick. You pull that thing shut, and you hit the button, and the titanium crusher comes down to the top, and it just starts going, and the little needle goes up and up and up and up, and you're waiting, and you're waiting, and you're waiting, and then it goes, pop. And a little piece falls off the front, and it reads out a number. You're like, that was anticlimactic. We'll get the next one, because we have to do it 3 times. Same deal. Pop. Dan. But that was a fascinating test. That was a test. Experiment. Experimental design. Everybody in the class had different mixes, and we had to compare and do math. And what were we trying to learn? We were trying to learn about researching new materials that could hold more weight, that could be produced cheaper, that were easier to use on site. Now, sure, these are physical things. This isn't software. But does that sound like testing to you guys? Honestly, anybody? That's where I learned this stuff. Now, look at the little circle on the board there. Idea, research, design, build a prototype, test it, do a pilot. We might call that what? Acceptance testing, maybe? Commercialize. I'd like to talk about commercialize because nobody else talks about it, right? That's all the stuff you do after it's done to make it pretty and usable. Or some people might call that a hardening sprint. I mean, that's what we do, right? Huh. Interesting. But at any rate, just all that background, that's why I read this stuff and I'm like, and? This is what everybody does, right? Now, I was blessed. My first software development team, custom software development for what turned out to be a really great company. Now, I didn't know anything. I didn't know we were any good. A bunch of 25 to 35-year-old folks who today, every single one of them that I've kept in touch with is either an executive or an owner of a company. So I don't know who the hiring manager, I literally do not know who the hiring or recruiting manager was for this company, but wow, could they find talent. But you know what? We didn't know what we were doing. We knew three things. Somebody else found us a client who wanted some software. And then we, as a team, got together with a client and we built the software. And if it was good enough, they paid us, we got our bonus, they referred us to our friends, we kept our jobs, and we got to do it again. If it wasn't good enough, the client got angry, we started working about 130 hours a week, we didn't get our bonus, and it just didn't go so. That's all we knew. Yeah, we had titles. This guy was a developer. I was a performance tester. But you know what? I didn't even know what that was. My buddy recruited me in. The company I had been working for got bought by another company. They cut our overtime, gave me stock options, $42 a share. I did go back and check that when I would have been vested. Anybody want to guess what it was worth at vesting? Come on. Hey, for a book, does anybody want to guess? Oh, no. Close enough. Who said that? Actually, it was 17 cents. So needless to say, I was very happy that when I called my buddy and I said, dude, and I did. His name's Mike Kopecki. Look him up. He'll tell you. I said, dude, you got to help me with my resume, my CV. I got to get out of here before this gets even worse. He goes, don't worry about that. Come work for us. Now, us, right? This is an old drinking buddy from university, right? Us. Who's us? Now, I know the office that he worked in was a couple miles, so I don't know, 3K around the corner from my house. That sounded pretty good. So I said, doing what? He says, we need a performance engineer. I said, what's that? He said, don't worry, you'll like it. And so that was a couple years, like 2, before the Agile Manifesto came out. So, I read this thing, I'm like, oh, that makes sense, and I put my name on it. Never thinking that this was, I don't know, a big deal, controversial, right? Oh, big holy wars in the industry. Good friends never speaking to each other again because they didn't like the word choice in the end text. Oh, it's crazy. But hey, made sense to me. That's what I did. That's what our company did. Of course, we called it RUP. Come on, who wants to say, but RUP is iterative? Come on. Does anybody remember RUP? All right. See, here's the cool thing about RUP. RUP is anything you want it to be. Anybody old enough to remember the Smurfs? Yeah? Yeah, RUP is like the word Smurf. Now, don't get me wrong. It was a fabulous framework to customize and make it so that you have the tools and templates. And so I didn't have to worry about things like, what am I supposed to put in the header of the Word doc for this class? Right? I mean, it was fabulous. But, hey, if you're good at customizing, it's whatever you want it to be. It's great. But at any rate, that's kind of where I'm coming from, right? So all right, back on track. Enough about me. So back to this history thing. Where we left off, if you recall, no, there aren't any more movies, sorry. But where we left off was at the digital age. And about Cast, Colorado, what was that, 3 years ago? Anybody remember? Ish. I got a chance to sit with Jerry Weinberg for a couple hours while we were waiting for fondue. Now, I won't make any comments about the performance of the fondue restaurant. I will say it was very good when it finally arrived, and I was very happy to sit next to Jerry Weinberg for 3 hours. And so, if you know Jerry at all, I mean, we'd encountered one another. We talked a little bit on email. He'd been at the conference the year before, and I'd been the one to help him with the logistics, and because I was the executive director. I was Jose for that conference that year. so I was helping Jerry get there and whatnot. So we knew who we. But he says, so what do you do? And I said, I do performance testing. He goes, I don't know if I know anything about performance testing. I swear to you, I almost fell out of my chair. Right? Here's a man who used to code in what? I don't know, octal assembly or something for the space program and with IBM, right? What? He doesn't know anything. Look, if you wrote code in the 60s that went in things like satellites and spacecraft and secret military stuff, you know everything about performance. You don't measure it in seconds, and you don't measure it with load runner. You measure performance on those things with multimeters and oscilloscopes. You don't measure it in milliseconds. You measure it in nanoseconds. Because there's no such thing as late data. Because if it's late, it's worse than absent. So if it doesn't get there on time, you throw out the data and guess because it's more accurate. Think about that. The scary thing is that's how the anti-lock braking systems on your car and how missile guidance systems work today. Embedded programmers know performance. We talked for about 3 hours. And the other thing that I realized as we were talking is, by then I had self-identified with these communities, with Agile and context-driven. And I'm listening to him talk about what they did way back in the day. And I'm like, man, we don't know anything. We don't know anything about Agile. We don't know anything about context. These guys knew. They didn't have special titles like DBA. Whoa, Jack. Like DBA and thank you. Like DBA and developer and tester, and they were just a whole bunch of smart people who worked together to get a job done. They didn't have deadlines because nobody knew if any of it was possible. They just hoped it was. They didn't do code reviews because somebody told them to or because it was written in a book. They did it because, really, it was a whole lot easier, faster, more responsible for a couple of guys to sit around with a couple of boxes worth of printer paper of code and review their code than to take up the computer time to put in a stack of punch cards like this to find bugs. They didn't test on the machine, or at least they tried not to. They tested each other's code on paper. It's insane. And they put people in space who came back. Alive. And what do? We put up some websites that in the US will start going down in about 12 hours. Think about that. We can't keep a retail site up on Black Friday. We've got all these tools, we've got all these processes, we got all these smart people. Hey, you can get a degree in this stuff. Do you know that? I know, that sounds crazy, but I don't have one. It's insane. So what happened? They're putting people... Okay, fine. We're still putting people in space and bringing them back too, but... That was a long time ago. Well, it was like that right up until two things happened that changed the whole face of this industry, and it'll never go back. I know I'm not supposed to say always or never as a context-driven guy, but really, I'll bet my house on this one. We're never going back. In 1985, at least in the US, it was 1985. Different countries, probably at different times. But prior to 1985, software had a $0 value by law. It didn't show up on the accounting books. You couldn't resell just software. You actually, in the US, could not sell software prior to a court case in 1985. Now, you could sell devices that had software on it, but there was no way to sell software legally. I mean, people sell lots of things that they're not supposed to, but legally, until 1985, changed our world forever. Because now, with that one ruling, the Ninth Circuit Court upheld by the Supreme Court, and it was all about the end-user license agreement of software, blah, 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 whatever. Companies could then say, ooh, write magic stuff, put on disk, go to person who doesn't know what it is, say, give me lots of money and you can't hold me responsible when it goes badly. I'll go get rich now. And all of a sudden, the notion that for software to be useful, it had to actually do something, went away. After 1985, the only thing that mattered about software was, can it make the owner money? Now look, yes, I'm from the US, but I really am a lousy capitalist. And when you come and try to claim my house, you will find that out. So I can't say that I approve of ship anything you can to make $1. But here's what I know. They're the ones with the money. They're the ones that sign our checks. And we've heard several angles on this through several talks. And I actually don't like the truth behind this. I really don't. But here's part of what I've learned since I got into software, as opposed to civil engineering, where, yeah, everybody wants to make a buck, but here's the deal. A bridge falls down, they're going to take way more than you could have ever made. So you kind of want it to not fall down. Well, unfortunately, for all the people who are injured by bad software, there's still not really a way, at least in the US legal system, to hold those software producers accountable so they can say, oops, I'm sorry. Can I sell some more now? Which means that quality, if we want to keep cashing our paycheck, is exactly as good as some salesperson needs it to be to talk somebody out of money. Does anybody like that idea? He must be making some money. So, at any rate, once it became profitable to build software, we stopped treating it like research and development. We started treating it like a product. And we started using one of these models. Now, it doesn't really fit all that well, but it didn't matter because that's what the MBAs knew. Because now the people leading the software projects weren't PhDs in wow, weird stuff that I don't even know how to pronounce. Now they're MBAs of I want to make a lot of money. And the world changed. The other thing that happened, round about the same time, and I've got some of the many folks in the timeline here, but the bottom line was, it all started back with these guys, Gilb and McCabe, and they started talking about testing. Now, they weren't talking about tester testing. They were talking about, hey, developer, if you're going to write code, it really ought to do what you told it to. Well, that makes sense. Oh, and here are some ways to check to see if it does. It's far more complex than that. Read the books. It's actually very insightful. And then Glenford Myers comes out. Who's familiar with Glenford Myers? Glenford Myers actually starts a ball rolling that says, maybe a developer testing their own code isn't enough. Not because the developer's dumb, but because if the developer is the one that had the oversight in the first place when they were coding it, what are the chances that he's going to have the same oversight when he's testing it? I mean, think about it. Okay, all you guys that were up with me way too late in the other bar last night, how many times did I trip over that step before I got it right? Every time. Pete says 4. Yeah, every time. Very good. I didn't learn the first time. It took I almost face planted. So at least four times I made the same mistake. And if Henrik was here, he'd tell you the first thing I said was, paint that white or having it removed. Well, doggone it. Developer didn't fix my bug. It sounds ridiculous, right? But what a simple thing. What a simple thing. You would think that the threat of taking a faceplant in front of friends new and old, and worse, spilling their beer, would be enough to make me remember not to do that again. 4 times. 4 times. And I guarantee, now I'm no excellent developer, but I'm no slouch, but I guarantee if I can trip over that thing 4 times, I can make the same mistake while I'm coding it, while I'm testing it, while I'm fixing it, and then when I check it in again, because I guarantee it's a lot easier to miss a mistake in code than it is to miss. That's this big. I felt like an idiot. Anyway, so we started down this path of separating dev and test, and we started by talking about skills, and then tasks, and then we got our own name. We have an identity. We're proud of our identity, yeah? You guys proud of being testers? Who's proud to be a tester? Woohoo! I am. Now, I can't say that, makes me the center of attention at parties that aren't at techie conferences, but I love what I do. But as we go further and further and further down this path, it's not just you're better at finding what's wrong, and you're better at writing algorithms, and you're better at managing data. Eventually, we took these different skills and we separated them. And then we put up a wall. And then we put guards on the wall called managers. And then we disabled communications. No more talking. You must enter a bug report. And you must submit it to your manager so they can review it and forward it up to the project manager, because only the project manager is allowed to forward a bug to the dev manager. So the dev manager can decide, A, that he's not going to fix it anyway, but after we go through that argument 7 times, he can send it to a developer and say, please fix that. Who says what? Not reproducible, works on my machine, not a bug. 3 weeks later, somebody actually schedules a meeting when the right developer, the right tester, and the right 4 managers are in the office, so you can sit down together, and you can demo the bug to the dev, who goes, oh, hold on, there. Oh yeah, it wasn't mine, but I know where Bob made that mistake, hold on. And you know what? I couldn't make this stuff up, I'm not that creative. Okay, maybe it was only 2 weeks instead of 4, but really, this happens. Somewhere, we broke the model. We broke the model. So, what does this result in? A rainbow! This results in a whole slew of different methodologies that have sometimes some things in common, but never any terminology in common. And it goes nuts. So from 85 on out to 2010, and there's a reason I'm saying 2010, but all the way out, we just got all this stuff. And let me tell you, as a consultant, there was a time when I started by saying, and what SDLC do you use, and and you know what I do now? I walk in and say, I don't even want to know. It doesn't matter. You make some software, you called me, that's all I need to know. Because I'm the perf guy. So really, do I care? Whether it's a 2-day or 2-year cycle? No. If it's bad enough for you to call me, we're throwing the process away while I'm here anyway. So, hey, what do you call code? Oh, you call it a program. Okay. What do you call it when a guy sits down and types in this little box and stuff happens? Oh, for you it's programming, for you it's development, for you it's magic. Got it, whatever. I just want to use your language. I couldn't care less anymore, but man, go look at the blogs. Go read a magazine. Heaven forbid you actually get in a room with one of the people who coined one of these terms. Now, if you like watching really passionate arguments, it's kind of fun. Just stay back a little ways, because furniture tends to just magically go flying into walls. It's unbelievable. So, I predict, and I've got a pretty good track record of predictions that I actually get around to saying publicly. Not a guarantee, I'm not betting my house on this one. Although I might bet the broken lawnmower if you want to come get that. Negotiations ensued. So, I'm going to say that future software historians are going to mark a little dot somewhere around about 2010 as a time when the evolution of software development forked into two paths, never to reunite, at least in the time that they marked that point. And it's going to look more like this silly rainbow. And here's what it really boils down to, folks. We, those of us that are here, that we work with, that like the same thing we do, we are on this path toward what I like to call lean, cloudy, agile DevOps. Okay, I don't like to call it that. I just don't know what somebody's going to call it when we get there, right? But that's kind of where it's going. And then there's all those folks that we've been picking on all week. Okay, some of the folks we've been picking on all week have nothing to do with this. But then we've got the traditional organizations, and Scott Ambler pointed it out. Marcus, you talked about it a little bit indirectly. Goiko talked about it. I've heard it all over the place. And here's kind of how it goes. We have companies that specialize in software. That is their product. They play up here. Okay? And then we have places like financial institutions who have internal development shops on accounting systems that, honestly, I don't care how you code and test it. You can only promote code for a 48-hour period between quarter close and quarter open 4 times a year. Period. And oh, by the way, before you do it, you have to get a whole bunch of auditors in to bless it and approve it. And if you happen to be going through a government audit at the time, they say, no, you can't promote until we're done our audit because you might be changing the software to get yourself out of trouble with the government. Yes, I was on that project. 3 quarters went by. Government guy said, no, you can't promote. Vendor upgraded their software 3 times before we got the first one in. Oh, it's nuts. But what can they do? They can be as lean, cloudy, agile, DevOps-y as they want to be, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So I think this split has already occurred, and we're not really admitting it. Now, if you're not happy about which path you're on, I think it is possible to jump ship. And I think this guy up here, he's going to talk about that in his next in that, what is that, next seminar? Is that you? Yeah. I think Hive's going to tell us how it's possible to change paths, but I'm going to have to go see if that's possible. I'm sure it's not easy. So, so, there's another way to look at that. But what does this mean for all us testers? All right, that's a lot of history. That's a little bit of prediction. So I think there's a couple of things that I'm willing to put a stake in the ground. I'm willing to be on video as having said. Not betting my house. I already did that. Yeah, it's like having 2 mortgages. It's just not a good idea, right? Whichever path your company, your software, whatever is on, I think there's one core underlying principle that will continue to bubble up until it finally takes charge and unifies whatever it is in your team for your company that brings the team together. Because there's only one thing that's going to bring them all together, and that's the guy who's writing the checks. Now, until the ancient aliens come back and tell us they were never here, that's what we got. And so if we, whether we're testers, devs, managers, random people who walked into the wrong place, saw a name tag and pretended to be them and are here instead of going to work, whatever, it doesn't matter to me. But this is how we add value, contribute to business success. Now, how many people have followed the is test dead or testing is dead thing? Not nearly enough of you for this to be half as funny as I want it to be. Anyway, There's this whole thing about it, testing is dead. And my mentor, my hero, Alberto Savoia, did this great talk. It was a fabulous talk. He comes out dressed as the Grim Reaper, and he makes this great Nietzsche reference, right? Test is dead, he says, just like Nietzsche had said, God is dead. Not meaning there is no more God, but what Nietzsche meant was, really, the old way of looking at things is no longer the most relevant, appropriate. We've learned since then. And that's all Alberto is saying. And you know what? I don't disagree with him. Because as I run around the world, companies developing software at all different levels of maturity, and I see what's going on out there, you know what? The folks out there who are delivering the best from a business perspective, and I don't mean cheating, and I don't mean greedy. I mean really solid, fast, keep up with market, worth the money that it costs. Yeah, some bugs get out. Yeah, it goes down sometimes. But when you're releasing 7 times a day, hey, it goes down sometimes. Hey, push a patch in a couple minutes. Oh, by the way, my users don't pay anyway. Facebook. Let me tell you, you can love them, you can hate them. I'm a performance tester. I will tell you, they are the model. They are the model for world-class performance today. They might not be the fastest site. They're consistent. They are disciplined. And I don't know a single person in that company who was hired as a tester. Not one. Now, the best performance engineer that I know in the world works there, and it's not me. She is amazing. And I don't even know what her title is, but it sounds fancy, but it sure doesn't have test, and I'm not even sure it has performance in it. Is she? Is that what she calls herself, or is that what it says on the accounting sheet? She and I had a conversation about it. Whatever. It doesn't matter. Point is, they don't care. They don't care what your title is. Here's what they care about. You come to work. You do good work. Features get rolled out. Bugs get fixed. Software stays up. Ads show. More 13-year-old girls repost the new picture of Justin Bieber's haircut. No, really. That is their stress test scenario. The only time all of Facebook has ever gone down was because Justin Bieber got a haircut. But you know what? They test. They test in production. Continuous integration and delivery. And when I say continuous integration and delivery, I mean developer says, hey, I'm done. Merge. Prod. Small segment of prod. There it is. Oops, wrong file. Oops, go see Mark. He's not going to be happy. Does that sound scary to you guys? Sounds fun to me. You know why? Because everybody's responsible. Everybody's responsible. So testing is not dying. Testing is important. It's always going to be important. Just like when I take my car into the shop, as much as I don't want to pay for it, I actually want them to do the diagnostics. Who wants to pay for diagnostics? Come on. Who walks into our shop and says, please, 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 let me pay you to figure out what I have to pay you for? It's insane. Nobody wants to do that, but that's what we do because we want the answers. I know why that's happening. So in unicorn land, I believe that some flavor of this, we're going to roll back. It's going to look more like the Jerry Weinberg age of development in the sense that our teams are going to work together to deliver stuff, good stuff, valuable stuff, fun stuff, crazy stuff. I don't know what kind of stuff. I do know that this thing's probably more powerful than the ENIAC. So who knows by the time my kids are wandering around what they're going to have. I keep telling my 13-year-old I'm going to put a tracking chip in his sneaker. And then somebody told me, oh yeah, we have those. They're just really expensive. Really? Parents have it so easy. Oh no, wait. So I think that's going to happen. You know, I'm wandering around here. What time have I got? So I have like 7 minutes, something like that, right? Okay. I could spend all kinds of time, and I won't, talking about this, but it just fascinates me. It really does fascinate me, and I encourage each of you within your own industry, because the language will be more powerful in your own industry. Figure out in your industry what the difference is for physical products between research and development or new product development. Different industries use different words for this. Look at the difference between that process and the manufacturing process. And just look at how they're published. I mean, really, Wikipedia is great for this. You know what's great for this kind of research? Google Images. I don't even read. No, that's not true. But hey, manufacturing process cycle. Man, you got all kind of great pictures. And you see enough of them, and it starts to tell a story, and you start to be able to see the difference. It's fascinating. Do a little research. I encourage you to in your industry and see. You know, if you're in accounting, right? What do they do? Exploratory accounting. Forensic accounting. Look into forensic. If forensic accounting isn't testing, man, I don't know what is. Accountants have language for this. Look into risk mitigation, risk management. Industries have language for what we do. And maybe I keep thinking to myself, if we start talking the language of our industry instead of the language of software, then maybe we can come closer to getting on the same page. Because what CEO that's, doing financial trades of billions of dollars every nanosecond is going to take the time to learn our language? Hey, come on. What's a test case? Come on. Who thinks we all have the same definition of a test case? Right. And you think we're going to teach our executives what that means? Nope. So maybe we should learn their language. Just thought. And if you think for 1 minute that you can convince an executive that she or he wants to pay for testing, you're wrong. I don't want to pay for testing. You want to pay for testing? It's kind of like, I don't know if you guys do it here, but before I went to university both times, I had to pay to take a test that if I passed, I could pay to send in an application to see if I passed, to pay to get an education. Come on! You're making me pay to take a test so you can say fail. Come on, how about this? I'll take the test, and if you accept me, I'll pay your tuition. Nobody wants to pay for that. So I'm not insulting you, or I don't mean to be, and I'm not insulting them. No executive wants to spend money. An executive just wants software to work. An executive does not want to look at an accounting spreadsheet and see development, testing, ops. Think about it. If you were an executive, would you want to see all those line items? Or would you just want to see my software, projected cost, 10 mil. Actual cost, 10 mil. How cool would that be? I'm not saying it's going to happen, but that's all you want to see. Okay, maybe you want to see budget 10, actual 9, but you get the idea. But they don't want to look down and say, Oh, it ran over. Where can I cut costs? I think we as an industry, long before anyone in this room, I think, got involved, made a huge mistake when we started separating these things on accounting spreadsheets. I think it was a huge mistake. Because I've had executives look me square in the eye and say, why do I have to pay for this testing if you just develop it right in the first place? And you know what? They're not wrong. They're not wrong from their perspective. Because look at manufacturing, right? When you go buy a car, right? Yeah, it lists out a lot of things. But can you go down the little list on a car and say, oh, I want the one with no testing? It's just part of how the car is built. Why can't we do that with software? Why do we have to be so vocal about being so separate that somebody can just look and say, oh, scratch that line out. Line out of veto, gone. Yeah, it's going to go bad for them, don't get me wrong. Don't pay for the team. All right, so here's my recommendations, and this is next to the last slide. If you want to be successful, especially as an Agile tester, yes, this is a real story about the 13 mil. Look, I learned the hard way. I don't know what bugs are more important than whatever's going on in the boardroom. I just don't. I know what bugs are ugly. I know what ones I don't like. I know what ones are going to make the users scream. But you know what? I've had CEOs look me square in the face and say, I don't care what's wrong with it, because if I don't ship something on Monday, the investors are pulling the plug and we're all going home. You know what? When they say that to me, I say, ship it. Let everybody go home right now because we're not going to get it fixed. Have pizza ready. And we'll hold it together with bubble gum, baling wire, and carrier pigeons. I don't care, but you know what? How many millions of dollars does it take for me to say, you know what, my bug's really not that important? And the point is, until somebody looks you in the eye the first time and says, really? Really? You want me to fix spacer.gif? And I just spent $43 million on the Super Bowl commercial time slot, shot the commercial, the Super Bowl's next week, and you want me to pull the plug because of spacer.gif? No, ship. Please ship. Let me help you ship. Where can I push the button? Agile testing and testing in Agile is going to become far more, even more than it is today, a skill than a role. Good developers can be very good testers. Great developers are almost never going to be great testers. Great testers are almost never going to be great developers. Our brains work differently. That's not an insult. I'm a pretty mediocre developer. It's kind of fun every once in a while, but I'm pretty mediocre. But dude, can I test? I can break anything. And you asked Dawn, I can fix stuff too with duct tape and Gorilla Glue, and it works as long as nobody has to look at it. But my dad, by hand, with hand tools, made a chessboard out of wood. Think about that, 64 squares. So perfect that 15 years later, sitting in my garage in Florida, in the humidity, still fits perfectly. Hand tools. Yeah, and I put things together with duct tape. My dad's an artist. I'm not an artist. It's the same thing with testers and developers, right? Some people can draw, some people can sing, some people trip over the step in the bar. You know, whatever. We've all got our thing, right? Okay, you're not laughing about the bar thing. Better not trip over that anymore. Anyway, You want to add value? Help your team deliver better, faster, cheaper. I don't know your team well enough to know what that means. I know what I like to do. I like to sit right here and say, what you working on? Have you thought about performance?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Show me your performance unit tests.
Don't have them, don't need them.
Oh, how about this? We'll put some in there. Let's put some in there. 10 minutes, we'll put some in there. And if it causes improvements, you owe me lunch. If it doesn't, I owe you lunch.
Okay.
You in?
You're on.
All right. I cannot tell you how many times I've watched 400% and 500% performance improvements during a single sprint from that conversation. Or I could have sat around and argued with LoadRunner about how to handle view state. Be a testing expert, but don't be a testing union member. Okay, I'm glad you guys get that. You know what? We want the project to succeed. Pitch in where you can, when you can. Testing is job one for you guys and gals and me. But you know what? If there's nothing to test because everything's broken and they're trying to fix it, maybe the best thing I can do right now is go make coffee. And you know what? That's okay because I care and I want it to work. I'm not above making coffee for my devs. And I hope they're not above making coffee for me when they don't let me run my performance tests during business hours and I'm working in the middle of the night for 3 weeks. Anyway, we've talked about the business decision thing. But remember, and I've been on this rant for a while, and again, I'm telling you I hate it. It doesn't make it any less true. The only reason you get paid to test is because some exec... Wait a minute, do I have any pure academics with infinite funding and no deadlines? Okay, so the only reason you get paid to test is because an executive thinks it will reduce their time to a bigger yacht. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Questions? So, any questions?
They're afraid of me.
Okay, one question.
There you go.
Yeah, it worked. Okay. He wants a book.
Yeah. Oh. There's one left. Make it a good question. Last book.
I have a question for a long time, and maybe you're the man to answer this one.
Maybe.
Maybe. Did there ever have been another industry, not the software industry, who developed such a strange, weird concept of separating development and testing? Ever before? Did it ever happen?
Testing, not that I'm aware of. We've separated things like quality assurance, quality control. I cannot think of an example where we have separated testing. And now, different people define testing differently, so that's a challenging thing, right? We can't even define test the same, right? But here's what I know. I know that in accounting, for 7,000 years, we've had audits, but the accountant's responsible. For 6,000 years, you know how civil engineers originally got licensed? Funny story, and it's true. So you have a farm. You have a whole bunch of cow, sheep, I don't know, whatever you like, animals that walk. And there's this big ravine between where they are and where the grass is. So you hire me, because I say I can build a bridge that will hold your animals. And you say, okay. And I build the bridge. And then you say, okay, Mr. Engineer, go stand under the bridge. I'm bringing my animals across. You live, I pay you. True story. True story. So hey, you think that guy tested? I bet he did.
Okay. More questions? Okay. Thank you very much, Scott. It was
Thank you.
amazing. It was
Thank
really
you.
amazing. Thanks.